Hey everybody, it's DJ Nikki, WXCD 107.3 with your weekly news wrap-up. In the studio today with Jonathan Cortez from elwoodcity.org. We missed you last week. Our schedules just couldn't connect with each other, so last week we did not have a weekly news wrap-up. However, news really hasn't changed too much. Everybody's still talking about the main focus in the news. You want to talk to us about it?
Yes, and that is the Elwood City Electric Department.
The electric issue.
Which hasn't become the most popular of the borough's services.
It's not. I mean, honestly, on the heels of the electric issue, we still have the zoning issue, and that's really just the big talk that's been going around town in circles is those two issues. WXCD, we don't take sides, so I don't know if you as an independent correspondent would like to voice your own opinion on that, but the town doesn't seem very happy right now.
Yeah. I mean, with zoning, we had like 20 people show up, so we don't know what percentage of people are in favor of it, what percentage aren't in favor, what percentage don't care.
How many do you think showed up for the electric?
But the electric, over 100 people showed up at the meeting on Monday, and there's a Facebook group of 1,000 people.
I saw the Facebook group. I was really surprised.
That's a big chunk of the Elwood City populace.
Yeah, we had talked about it here. The owners of the radio station and some of the upper staff, we had talked about it, and we had said that one of the issues with having a public meeting is you want to have that open. The public wants to be able to say what they're going to say, and that did happen. But now we want to do a flip on that, and the radio station wants to have a roundtable discussion where the different views and the different sides and representatives can come and sit and talk without getting sidetracked by disgruntled residents, because it happens. And I'm hoping that some of the residents who maybe didn't get their questions answered in depth or the way that they were hoping, maybe they'll get to hear something they didn't get to hear at the meeting. So that's going to be coming up here pretty soon. Were you at the meeting that night?
Yes.
What was your take? How did you feel?
I don't know how to answer that question. I mean, I'll have to be a more specific question than that.
Okay. What is your perspective on how long you think a resolve is going to take? I know that they used words like baby steps. What do you think a fair length of time would be?
Well, it's something that is too complex to be
instantaneous.
Well, not even just instantaneous, but something that this is when it's resolved. It's more of a gradual thing that can have multiple steps of resolution.
Right. So you agree that it has to be baby steps, and that's not just a excuse given to let everybody know that they're going to drag their feet. So it's not that anybody's dragging their feet. It's just that it has to happen in smaller steps.
There might still be foot dragging. But
I knew I could get your opinion out of you somehow.
Yeah. Well, so we can start from the top with this, since we haven't really talked too much about it yet on the show, and I think there is some misinformation about the electric department, but essentially Elwood City Borough owns its electric department, which many people know. And the reason we do that is to raise money in lieu of taxes.
Okay, but there is a misconception before you go further with that. Some people believed that Elwood City creates the electric that they sell, but they don't.
Yes.
They purchase it.
That is correct.
And then they sell it back to us.
Yes. So how that works is they buy electric from an outside source, and it has to be just like electric everywhere, whether you have Penn Power or whoever you have. It has to be transported along a grid to get to your house. So here it's transported to the Elwood City Borough and then retransported to each house. So Elwood belongs to something called American Municipal Power, which is a consortium of many boroughs mostly in Ohio and Pennsylvania. There's a few in a few other states. And everywhere that those boroughs or municipalities purchase power, that kind of like becomes part of the consortium. I think it was sort of a complicated concept to quite grasp what it was. If you go to AMP's website, they have list some of their energy providers, but I think those belong to AMP because people are buying it from them.
Right.
So the legal part of this is that there's 35 municipalities in the state of Pennsylvania that do what we do. So that's not that many. I mean, I don't know how many municipalities there are in Pennsylvania, but there's probably a lot more than 100. Yeah, it's in the hundreds. I don't know how many, but in the immediate area, we have New Wampum, Zillionople, and New Wilmington also do it.
I didn't realize that.
Yes.
I really thought that in this immediate area it was only Elwood.
No. And all of those, or at least Wampum and New Wilmington, also belong to AMP. And point out right now, and then get back to it later, that at least Jared Gibbons was at the meeting on Monday. He said that he has not received complaints from Wampum and New Wilmington. And Zillionople is in Senator Elder Vogel's district, and he has not received complaints from there.
The electric rate that residents pay, not just in this borough, but in those boroughs also, what's the comparison of the tax rate between this area and those areas? Because
I don't know.
mean, that would be one of the factors that I would think to look into. Like, if someone's not complaining, is it because they're paying less money somewhere else, in other parts of, what their outgoing money is?
Well, you also have to figure that all three of those are much smaller than Elwood. They're not going to have the same expenses we do.
Right. I mean, the borough needs to have the revenue and the money to, take care of an area that has 8,000 people.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a heftier expense than a small town like Wampum that probably only has 2,500 people.
Yeah. So the borough uses a consulting group, Utility Engineers. They do consulting with the borough for multiple engineering things, but they also recommend where to purchase power from.
Does Elwood change who its supplier is based on the rates that they're offered?
Yes. Well, they go off of what the consultant recommends. It was either at the end of this last year or the beginning of this year, they signed a 5-year contract, which is what people have been taught. Some people have talked about that, but 5-year contract of how to purchase power, and it's supposed to stabilize the rates. So that's one thing. Another thing is, they get the money, they sell it to the residents. They have to sell it at a higher price than what they buy it. So they currently buy it at roughly 8.5 cents per kilowatt hour, and they sell it at about 11 cents per kilowatt hour.
That's really not as big of an increase as it would seem.
But the borough uses something called the purchase power adjustment, which is on your bill as a rate adjustment. And that is what super jacks up the price. I have had many people explain to me what the PPA is, and I don't know what the PPA is. And in layman's terms, when I've asked about what rate adjustment is, it was explained to me that if a large group of the consumers are consuming a large rate at one time, for instance, when you have a 90-degree day and you have 3/4 of the residents all running air conditioning at one time, the demand for that much electrical supply at one time changes the rate for the entire month. So, you may only have 3 or 4 days out of a month where the majority of the residents are sucking down the electric, but it makes the demand so high right then that's the rate for the month. Like, if you look at your electric meter and, you're somebody who's trying to conserve your electric all the time and, you're keeping your lights turned off and this and that, but then you have a busy, day off and you're a weekend warrior and you're cleaning the whole house and you got the air conditioning running, the vacuum cleaner, the coffee pot and the washer and dryer, and you're doing all this in one day, that one day depicts the rate that you pay for the whole month. So you may be, somebody who's trying to conserve throughout the month, but you need to probably plan better and space out how much electric you're using at one time, because that's what determines the rate you pay for the month. So before I get into whatever my perspective is on this, I'll say the PPA does appear, from what I've heard from people who are both people with their bills and those who would have knowledge on the subject, it does distribute it disproportionately compared to your consumption for the entire month. And it is also not something that has to be done.
Really?
Yes. I have heard that Wampum and New Wilmington do not use a PPA. And I've also heard that their primary use is for towns with more manufacturing or businesses that would be on it. And in Elwood, some of the factories aren't even on Elwood Electric. Ameco and the Forge are not. I don't know about what other ones, Adams Manufacturing. I don't know about them, but
I didn't realize they could be within the city limits and not.
Sorry for interrupting you, but this is how this works. So as I said, there's 35 municipalities in Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania legislator passed a law saying that those municipalities could require all residents within the municipality to purchase electric from their department, thus depriving them of freedom of choice in choosing your electric provider. So what Elwood does is legal by state law, and how Ameco and the Forge got out of that is back when this was done, which nobody has ever told me when Elwood Electric started, but it seems to be a very long time ago. Yes.
Yeah.
But up until fairly recently, Elwood City actually hasn't had the capacity to supply a factory.
I see.
Now,
so they let them have
yes,
their outside supplier because they didn't think they could supply it.
Recently, we have upgraded the infrastructure, and so it actually could. Now, how Ameco and the Forge got out of that is grandfathering. So,
right.
I didn't know what this was until zoning came up and it was mentioned. But grandfathering is basically if something has been doing something a certain way.
Right. If you've already been in operations under one set of rules, they can't force you to comply to a new set. It's almost like if you're a renter and you're under lease, whatever your lease says, that's in it. So unlike a lease, it doesn't have to renew. There's a lot of zoning laws that we ran into in Newcastle that did not apply to residents who had owned their homes prior to the 80s. So say you had a home that belonged to your grandparents. If it was passed down within the same family, the zoning laws didn't apply to them. And the residency laws, like Newcastle does not allow you to have a bedroom on the third floor unless you have a full-size door and stairs that lead to the ground. However, if you owned your home before they made that rule, then you could have a bedroom on the attic floor with nothing but a window, and it's perfectly legal. It's because they grandfathered it in. So this open table discussion that I was talking about that's going to happen here, do you feel that that's something that we could post out on elwoodcity.org after it's done produced?
Yes.
Yeah, because I think that the more residents get to hear clearly what each side has to say, the closer that we come to a resolution.
Yeah. And when we're talking about each side, we don't really know quite what the sides are.
I think there's more than just two sides of it. It's not just, the little pigs and the big bad wolf. It's not like that, There's several different ideas of what could be done,
And so we didn't get to this yet, but they sell the electric to us. They get 3 kilowatts back on us, and then they how that works is we have the general fund. The general fund pays all the overhead costs for the borough departments. So the fire department, police department. I don't know the names of the other departments, but there's 6 or 7. So the electric department pays for itself. So if we got rid of the electric department, that wouldn't save money that way because they're paying for themselves. So then I think in 2015, our general fund was $3.5 million. About $1.4 million of that came from the electric fund. So the other about $2 million was taxed. Now, when asked, Borough Manager Bob Villela said that if we got rid of the electric department, our taxes would raise by 5.58 mils, which is pretty hefty. Our current tax rate is 7.75, I think.
So, wow.
Yeah, so that was...
And that's what I was trying to say earlier, is that we pay a higher rate for the electric, but the borough uses the electric profit to pay for other things that other boroughs are paying higher taxes for. So, that's what people need to understand. I mean, how do you want to view this? Do you lower utilities and higher taxes, or keep the taxes low and continue paying higher utilities? It's almost like 6 or half a dozen,
Yeah. So how that number is pretty simply just how to raise $1.4 million through taxes. That's where the 5.58 mils comes from. So that's straightforward. Then look at the pros and cons. With the pros of the electric is that the cost of the borough is more evenly distributed. Renters don't pay property tax. Will pay electric bills, but not property tax. Churches pay electric bills, but not property taxes.
Right. So if you get to a point where you're lowering the electric cost, then it's going to be a smaller percent of people that have to bear the weight of paying out the money that it's going to require to continue running the borough. And it just seems like it's a struggle. I mean, you know, I'm somebody who's always low on cash, and I'm always fretting getting that electric bill paid. And I mean, I get it from that point, you know, from that point of view. I get it. It's hard to shell out that much money every month, especially when you're somebody that's trying to conserve electric. But I mean, as a person who realizes how things work as far as, you know, ownership and rentership and taxes and everything, it's going to be tough if they don't come to some kind of resolution that works out where it's, you know, equally dispersed over everyone that isn't, you know, killing us in electric costs. But so, I mean, I understand why they're wanting to take baby steps towards the resolution. I know that there are several ideas out there. You know, it's different agencies in Elwood have all been working on ideas because they recognize the issue. You know, it's just a matter of coming up with something that works for everybody.
Yes. The other pro is that the council is essentially the board of directors for the electric department. We can go talk to them. You can't go talk to Penn Power.
Right.
We'll return to that in a bit because there's a downside to that. So the opposite, on the opposite end, the in favor of taxes, one, the borough might be tempted to, might find ways to cut costs. They'll be more forced to cut costs because it's easier to, I think it's easier to be sneaky with the electric. Like, not that they're necessarily sneaky, but it's just, oh, well, this is what we're charging.
This is how it is.
Yeah, this is what we're charging everybody for electric with the rate adjustment. Because even if you see the price per kilowatt, you know that that's fair, but you have no idea what your rate adjustment is going to be. So if, you know, every year they had to just raise taxes, and that's published in the Ledger and NOAA.org and advertised on the radio,
it would deter people from moving into the area.
It would that, but the electric rates already deter people from moving into the area once they find out.
Well, but that's the thing. If they don't know what the rate adjustment's going to be, somebody moving into the area may think that paying 11 point some cents per kilowatt isn't that much.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah.
With that rate adjustment being the way it is, you wouldn't know. But if the taxes are you know, boosted to be extremely high, new people moving into the area, I know when we were looking for a home, that was the first thing we looked into is what's the taxes.
Yeah.
It's something you know about before you come here.
Even though the tax rate is distributed among less entities, it might possibly be more heavily on people who make more money. So another con is that with a tax base, it might be like the burden, the financial burden might fall more on people who can afford it, because the electric bills seem to be killing a lot of people on a fixed income. Moving on, I'll say some of my input on this. So, you know, like, we can't move immediately to switch one way or the other because, you know, as I recently learned, I don't know what all of them are, but our solicitor Ed Lemery said that he estimated about $10 million worth of assets in the electric department, which we don't want to just necessarily lose out on that. We have to find, you know, if we switch to private providers, we have to find ways of selling those. Yeah.
And you have to compensate that difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then we'd have to decide how exactly we're going to end up raising the additional money. So, you know, I think, so realistic steps would be look at ways that we can reduce expenses.
Right. How can we reduce the need for that amount of money?
Yeah. So there are ways of reducing some of it, but just flat out say 40% of the departmental costs are the police department, and do we want to cut anything from there? Because, you know, we just hired two full-time people this year. We're still not up to fully staffed.
Right. And honestly, when you think about it, when you cut a police department back, and this has happened in larger cities, then the crime rate raises. And when the crime rate raises, you know, it's almost like, me personally, I'd rather pay a little bit of a higher rate for my lights being on than to have a crime rate that's going to raise because we have less, you know, police in force. So that's almost like a you get what you pay for kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know?
So I think council needs to have some serious discussions on ways of reducing costs. I don't think there's an easy way of we're not going to just get rid of $1.4 million. We might only be able to strip away $100,000, but that's still something.
Right.
So other thing that I thought of, you know, like, there's 1,000 people in the Facebook group, but after there's going to be the town hall on the first Monday of August. I think that's August
August 1st.
Okay, first Monday of August is August 1st.
Yeah.
So once we have enough information, I think maybe sometime by the end of this year, we could have just an entire borough referendum to see how many people are in favor of switching to a private, how many people are in favor of switching to, or of staying in the Elwood Electric Department.
Yeah, and as I said in the beginning of this show, WXCD plans on having an open roundtable discussion where they can all concisely get out all of their thoughts, ideas, and statements without anybody interrupting, with opinions and whatnot. And I think that the general population will be able to be better informed to be able to hear each opinion concisely in its entirety. Because if you go to say something to me and somebody else yells out to you, you may get distracted and not say everything that you meant to say. And that's why WXCD wanted to do this. So hopefully we can make that happen here real soon. And, more of the public can get to hear more information. That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
All right.
I also think we need to reach out to Wampum, New Wilmington, Zillionople, and see what they're doing that's different than us, because they don't have the same problem that we do.
Right. If they're doing the same thing that we're doing without having the problems, then we need to take advice from what's working and what's not.
And maybe this rate adjustment thing just needs thrown out, because even if we decide to switch to private, that might not be for a few years, and seems like these electric rates are killing some people in the town. So is that, and the other thing is we buy it at 8.5 cents. Maybe there's a cheaper way, because with how many kilowatts we bought, I did do one calculation. If you bought it at 7 cents, it would be about $850,000 less per year for the borough.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So then, if it's a cent and a half lower, then the people's rate would be about 9.5 cents.
Right.
So,
which is almost a 2-cent savings.
Yeah.
So
that's significant. That's things to look into. And then finally, we didn't talk about the customer service at the electric department, which has people very upset too. I don't know what's with this. I don't live in this town.
I know that.
I don't know what's with
I know
you guys'
that a lot.
Department. Like
I would
this.
say that a large percentage of the residents do pay their bills at the very end of the month, like right when you're at the deadline, and you have to. And it gets hard. The electric department obviously knows exactly what day shutoff day is.
Yeah.
And I believe that they should have extended hours the day before, because that's when people are trying to pay. And it's not, there are many payment options. I mean, they have a drop box, you can pay online, but for the residents who, they want to pay in cash, it's having extended hours, even just that one set day would be helpful.
I don't think we need extended hours. I think we need normal business hours. What, 8 to 12:30? And sometimes I've been at the window to pay a parking ticket before 12:30. Like, I get out of work, I go over there, it's like 12:10, the window's closed. They're not always even keeping the window open till 12:30, and 8 to 12:30 Monday through Thursday. What kind of even the bank has better hours than that, and the bank is like never open when you want to go there.
Well, I'm sure that they'll probably discuss that, but I mean, that may have even been, we don't know, that may have been departmental cutback in order to, you're shaking your head now.
The employees work full time there.
Okay, so it's only, so even though they're there working, it's just a matter of how long they open the window to the customers. Oh, I see.
Yes.
I see.
If it was the other thing, they only work half days, then by all means that makes sense, because if they work a full day, and then our electric bill goes up because we have to pay for them. But no, the department's open all the time. They also have the 10 day. You have 10 days to pay your bill, which, I mean, when I rented, I don't remember what company I had, but when I rented, it was 30 days before my electric got shut off.
Well, plus I know that if you live within the borough and you're a renter, you can't just go and make an arrangement to pay. You have to have your landlord sign off on it.
Yeah.
You have to have, it has to be a 3-party agreement.
That was because renters, this is something that they did fix about a year ago or so. Renters would sometimes bail.
Right, they were stiffing the landlords with the money.
Yeah, and then the landlord had to pay their payment plan.
Yeah. Well, every little fix is a step in the right direction.
And I've heard numerous complaints about the bills that people just don't understand what they're getting charged for. A lot of that has to do with the rate adjustment. So it seems like if the borough took some very rapid steps on increasing customer service, that would at least...
It would appease a lot of the people.
Yes. It would solve some immediate problems, and it would make, I think it would show that council is concerned with addressing this issue immediately and not just talking about it indefinitely, which I am concerned about that might happen.
I knew at the beginning of the interview that we'd get your opinions out there. All right, so is that about a wrap for the weekly news wrap-up?
Yeah, that's...
But we'll have more immediately following the August 1st meeting.
Yeah.
We'll do a wrap-up on the August 5th, and we'll have plenty to talk about more, I'm sure.
Yeah, this doesn't seem like it's going to just be a problem people will forget about, which I hope it isn't, because I think it is something that is a problem in the borough and needs addressed.
All right, well, we will discuss this further. Not only will WXED have the roundtable discussion that we talked about, but just Jonathan and I will also discuss this further on August 5th's wrap-up show. All right, I think it airs on the 6th. Yeah, airs on the 6th. Sorry, I had my days wrong. But that's a wrap for today.
Yep, that's a wrap.